plenty of present here too. I will appreciate also that you respect the decorum of this event and respect our legislators. We don't want, if you have grievances or you don't like our anything, you need to contain those feelings to yourself.
Yeah.
And if not, we were going to have to ask you to leave. And I don't want to do that. I want to keep hugging kisses today, we won't. My name is Elizabeth Cuevas Nunder. I am your Florida Chair for HOA Reform. I have with me online our National President for HOA Reform. He lives in Washington State, but he's right now working in Alaska. So I want him to, Patrick, will you say hello?
Yeah. I like that we talk.
It's wonderful. You have done a tremendous job all over the nation, and we continue fighting hard in Florida. As you very well know, we are the leaders in the pack, and we hope that this year we do a phenomenal job. We are very pleased to have with us the most amazing panel, and we want to introduce them to you. I'm missing someone yet. She is an amazing lady locally here, and I know she had a little health issue. Let's hope and pray that she will be with us. Let's stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Could you direct us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And because I do believe that we are here in a call and a mission, not because us, but because God wants us, I want everyone to bow your heads and say your prayers on behalf of unity, love, and respect, but mainly for those who are in special needs that we need to protect at all times, like our seniors, that they need a lot of love and attention. Many of them, they don't have someone with them. So, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Amen. In your holy name, Father, amen.
Going straight down.
We have one of our presenters, she's not here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and tell you who I am and why we are here today. Good evening to everyone, and thank you for being here. We are here tonight because the current system for single family homeowners and condos is a fundamental broken. Right now, a minor neighborhood dispute over something as simple as a privacy trellis can be weaponized by predatory law firms into multi-year legal battle ranking up tens of thousands of dollars, enforcing legal fees and destroying lives, dividing communities. Homeowners are being ambushed, and mediation has become a trap. But tonight we are not here to complain. We are here to make a difference. We are here to take that banner and fight back to get what belongs to us. We are here to launch a concrete turnkey solution and give you the opportunity to have a voice. The Sarasota County HOA Pre-Suit Division Pilot Program. Moderated after a high successful juvenile teen court, this program introduces a neutral 3-member panel consisting of a retired judge, introduces a neutral 3-member panel consisting of a retired judge, and And the president of CONA, which she should be here and she's not here yet. I know she had a little issue with health a couple days. And a peer owner, no HOA board or attorney will be permitted to file a civil lawsuit in Sarasota County without facing this panel first, giving residents an imminent zero-cost shield against frivolous lawsuit and predatory billers hours. We have brought together the exact leaders in this panel who have the power to make this pilot program a reality. I want to welcome our distinguished panel. State Representative Juan Porras from Miami, HOA Gladiator. Our own Representative James Buchanan, who have worked very hard also with our Representative Porras in Tallahassee, doing an amazing job in HOA reform. And of course, we miss her. She's not here, Bocona Lourdes Ramirez, who is she's an amazing woman, and she is the president of CONA. And we hope that with her and all of us, we can make Sarasota not just the best place to be, but the friendliest place to be in the entire state of Florida. Who I am? My name is Elizabeth Cuevas Nunder, Florida Chair for the HOA Reform Leaders. Before I became an advocate, I have been a victim. And sometimes you have to be careful who you make a victim. If you don't know who you're dealing with, you better get ready. So it's been 4 years that I have been working with our legislators. We have done a phenomenal job in the House of Representatives, but we really have to work hard on the Senate. We have to have a gladiator in the Senate to protect homeowners, as their entity cannot be destroyed by anyone. Before I became the advocate, I became a victim of HOA. My husband and I built a home 36 years ago, and it's paid. 7 years ago, a new neighbor moved in, trespassed, vandalized property, confronted my workers, and using HOA committees and the board of directors to escalate what should have remained a private neighborhood dispute. He turned it into a $200,000 fence, privacy fence. It's disgusting, but I also have put my name and my family name in a light that should never have been, for the simple reason that we serve the community. We don't make money, we never have, and we never will. Part of some committees of the board have more access and support for their mischievous behaviors. To protect my privacy and safety, I installed trellises and repeatedly contact the sheriff and file complaints to the credit of records of what was happening. When the board demanded that I remove the trellises to give them access to the neighbor to my property, I refused. I requested approval for a privacy fence 3 times. Each time was denied. It took a judge to grant me that fence. The HOA then filed a lawsuit with ICAR Merrill, and the HOA board allowed the legal fees to go to $66,000 that we were confronted to mediation. We demanded, or the judge told us that we had to go to mediation. My attorney did not defend me, and a lot of lies were given during that mediation. The mediator was a friend, and apparently in an email that we have of the HOA attorney. We were pressured to agree to have this mediation and to have the fence of privacy. We have to agree to the $66,000 that was completely a lie. And consequently, we never saw the bills. They have refused to give us the bills. After that, they accused me of breaking the agreement, and who broke the agreement was the HOA president the next day, sharing the information to the entire community. Then the attorney for ICAR went and told a lie to the judge, and the judge granted her $10,500 more. This has become a very hard for me personally, because that is my money for my Social Security that I have saved for years. I am 72 years old, but I am not going to die, and I'm going to live until I'm 150. Even when the fence was pushed then they pushed the fence 5 feet inside of my property, when it's supposed to be in the property line by the ordinance of the county. Violating the county ordinance prevented me from using 83 feet long by 5 feet wide section of my own property to grow my organic food. HOA president who violates constantly and our rules, and they engage quite often in intimidation and abuse. After they accused me of violating the mediation agreement, that was not me, was HOA president who violated. That accusation was supported by a testimony of the vice president's husband, who came to near me, and there is a report with the sheriff department telling me that he was going to be my worst nightmare. He served in the art committee. My experience is why I am here, to help prevent other homeowners from being trapped in the same costly and unfair, predatory, and abusive ways that they have been. And I can tell you that I have gone through the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. They don't work. I went through arbitration, and we need to work in arbitration, because what they are doing, I personally believe that is criminal. So we'll bring that to you. At this present time, we are going to have, I have 3 victims, 2 of them are not here yet. They are terrible cases. Oh, we have 2, okay. We have 1 case that is amazing, and we have here, this lady is absolutely, she's Puerto Rican too, so we Puerto Rican like to make things right. And she is Esther Smith. Esther Smith has a tremendous story for you to tell you, and the mic is yours. I'll do it. They train me.
Welcome, thank you for being here. Thank you both. I would like to share my story. I bought a condo for my daughter in 2018. I applied to be on the Condominium Association Board in January 2022, and I was elected treasurer by the board in March 2022. I began to get suspicious of how the association funds were being spent. With the aid of the condo board's vice president, I was able to convince her and obtain association bank account statements from December 2019 to December 2022. On October the 3rd, 2022, my husband and I met with the detective of Sarasota County Sheriff Office to present all the evidence that I collected. The detective office began an investigation into the activity of the Condominium Association president and the condo management company. 2 months later, the president of the association was arrested by Sarasota County Sheriff Department, not only once, but 3 times. At the condo association meeting, that's when they arrested him. the first time. The president arrested report states that by using the identity of the homeless individual, the president was able to transfer money from the association's account to a bank account in the homeless individual's name without the association's knowledge. He actually took his identity, but with knowledge and assistance of the property manager who co-signed the checks. This fraud and theft evidence was forwarded to the BBPR. After a review of all the materials, BPPR sent a letter to me stating, without interviewing me, based on the complaint documents collected, there is insufficient evidence to prove a violation of the Florida law or rule that government or professional involvement with your complaint. Therefore, they then closed the case. Mind you, without coming to visit me, who had all the evidence to show them. It is unbelievable that the Florida Department of Business Professional Regulation can fail in its duty to protect condominiums association from criminal activity of the property managers that they regulate. Is it okay to have property management companies allow a president of an association to steal hundreds and thousands of dollars from the HOA and not have some DBPR accountability? Thank you, Representative James Buchanan. I really thank you from the bottom of my heart for having DBPR open our original complaint against the management company and reviewing the piles and piles of evidence that I have sent their way. Mine and other requests that Florida legislation pass real protections for homeowners and condominiums association from the terrible management companies and homeowners on board. The real investigations are performed by Florida licensed attorney that interviewed the complaint as well as the accuser. That's when the associated president or any board member is arrested for stealing association funds that the property management company is also held liable, as it has a legal and moral responsibility to protect unaware association members that a crime is being committed, and failing to do so results in a stiff fine and loss of their professional license. Thank you.
At this place and time, I'm going to introduce to you Mr. Robert Garabola, 92-year-old veteran.
Good evening, honorable gentlemen, neighbors, fellow Sarasotans. I'm here to put some perspective on why mediation of some sort is an absolute necessity. I have 3 times in my long-term occupancy of my home been denied my rights. The first was involved displaying the American flag. I was told to take it down. And the reason given was flag poles were allowed. I pointed out that I had a flag staff, which is a device mounted 45 degrees off your home. And I was a Korean veteran, and I resented the implication I was going to take suit against them if they persisted. Well, today, there are flagpoles with American flags, I'm proud to say, throughout our community. But that started a targeting, I have to say, and I'm not paranoid, even at 92. But I have a number of infirmaries, life-threatening, that prove that I'm a living example of the old expression that says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Not to get sympathy for you gentlemen, from you gentlemen, or from my board, which I would never expect to get. I've had 6 heart attacks, I have 7 stents. I have stage 3 kidney disease. I have leukemia. I'm really blind in one eye. I have a mysterious problem called Dupuytren's disease in my hands. I can't write a check. But that situation did start, frankly, what I consider to be prosecutorial activity on that part, and selective enforcing rules and regulations. When one of the situations I had was as a 30-year veteran at the time of my home, my roof needed replacement, tile roof. My home needed painting, and thanks to a bunch of rabbits, my lawn was going. And the fact that the association subcontractor broke some of my water lines when they were trying to repair the water lines belonging to the HOA that go across, thank you, that go across my property. To put it, okay. Thank you. The next incident was I was fined $100 per day per event concerning roofing materials that remained on my property, the lawn which was dying. I didn't know it. I had my home rented out. I was grandfathered that right. That's no longer possible. But
Let's go to the present.
I'm sorry?
Let's go to what is going on now.
What's going on now is my sidewalk was broken when the truck tried to deliver empty, what do they call them, steel gizmos, to take the waste from the roof. The same time my home was being built, and we had pallets of grass sod on the property. I was fined $100 a day for each of those events, okay? And the real irony of all that was those materials had to remain there because the Sarasota Building Department caught the roofer with doing uncoated work. Or I should say, he didn't meet code regulations. No, excuse me, I'm a little nervous. Everything had to remain where it was. I had the building, my home was posted with devices, with the legal notice from the building department. Everybody stopped, and I was fined. And I refused to pay the fine because it was beyond my control. I brought those documents to a hearing, the president of which was a retired lawyer. His specialty was bankruptcy. I have a feeling he was trying to get a new client in me. He wouldn't allow me to talk. I said, I have proof that I am not able to do anything with these building materials and the paint. Everybody stopped their work. We're not here to listen to your rationale, Mr. Garapola. What's the vote to the 3 women on the board? As I said, he was the president. And it was thumbs down, and I walked out in frustration. As the person before me, Elizabeth Neonda, also did with her husband. No satisfaction, no ability to really rationalize why I had not paid any assessment, which now is probably in the thousands of dollars. And by the way, I just found out from Elizabeth that there's a lien on my home. And I must tell you I understand from an attorney friend that that's possible only if you're deficient in both paying association fees and an assessment fee. Well, guess what? My assessment fee has never been paid by me, but they have taken my annual fees and applied them to an assessment illegally. Now, what's the remedy? Hire a lawyer? Well, I don't have any resources anymore at 92. That's part of my story. There's others that right now I don't want to take too much time, but it begs that some objective person referee what goes on between residents and the HOA, the people most of my neighbors call middle manager, middle manager wannabes. And I think it's very appropriate, by the way. But thanks for your time. And I appreciate your effort.
Good job. Good job.
On his case, I have a lot of evidence of not just the abuse against a 92-year-old veteran, but also they go into his property, he was fixing the swimming pool, they stuck their heads, husband and wife, the president and her husband, inside of their swimming pool to look inside of his property. They're really out of control, and there's no way, because they're recycled for 7 years. They cheated in 2 elections, and we have no way for the arbitration to fix the problem, and we need to fix that problem. So at this present time, I have finally, she arrived, Ms. Connie Bruni, and she is going to present the program that we are going to hopefully have it in Sarasota. Ms. Bruni. Come this way.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, no, do it right, it's for the audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, no worries. Thank you for being here, both of you, State House representatives, future senator. So, there we go. This is a proposal for Sarasota County as an HOA pre-suit diversion pilot program. That's a mouthful. But what's happening is, the executive summary that I will give you is the current civil dispute framework for single-family homeowners associations in Florida is structurally flawed. You've heard evidence of that already. Obviously, something is wrong. While Chapter 720 of the Florida statutes mandates pre-suit mediation, the process has been weaponized by predatory law firms. Instead of facilitating resolution, mediation is routinely used as an adversarial ambush where homeowners are confronted suddenly with tens of thousands of dollars of accumulated, unverified HOA legal fees, among other things. And I think the gentleman before me gave you a really great example of that. Under duress, extreme duress, residents are often forced into predatory settlements that strip away their property rights and their civic rights. This is a serious concern. The Sarasota County HOA pre-suit diversion pilot program is a low-cost administrative solution modeled after the 12th Judicial Circuit's highly successful teen court program. If you're familiar, is everybody here familiar with our teen court program? Very successful diversion for youthful offenders to keep them out of the system and provide them alternatives. It was piloted here in Sarasota County in the 12th Judicial Circuit. Say that 3 times fast. And it's been very successful with youthful offenders in helping to reduce recidivism, which is obviously the desired outcome. Okay, so this is modeled specifically after that.
The pilot establishes a mandatory local administrative screening panel to evaluate covenant enforcement disputes before they can enter the civil court dockets. By filtering out frivolous claims, enforcing strict evidentiary standards, and freezing predatory billable hours, that happens a lot, this program protects individual taxpayers, preserves community stability, and relieves heavily congested court dockets. The mechanism, this is what we're proposing, a 3-member panel. No single-family HOA board or designated community association attorney may file a civil covenant enforcement lawsuit or record a restrictive lien, as we heard about, in Sarasota County without first submitting the dispute to a mandatory review hearing before a neutral 3-member panel. The panel will consist of 1, the magistrate, which is a chair, and that would hopefully be a retired Florida Circuit Court judge tasked with ruling on legal merit, managing the administrative procedures, and applying the Florida Rules of Evidence. Number 2, what we'll call the civic advocate, which would be the sitting president of the Sarasota County Coalition of Neighborhood Associations, CONA, or an authorized executive designee, serving as an expert on balanced community leadership, neighborhood equity, and corporate board standards. And then number 3, the peer juror, a neutral single-family homeowner residing in Sarasota County, but completely outside the voting district of the active dispute, providing an objective citizen perspective. That's so a 3-member panel. The key procedural protections for the local judiciary are that you have an automatic legal fee moratorium. The formal filing of the dispute with the diversion panel triggers an immediate legally binding freeze on all HOA attorney billing hours related to the enforcement action. Why would we do that? Well, that strips the incentive to keep it going and going and going forever so you can just build up more billable hours. If you've ever been in a lawsuit, you know what I'm talking about. So the desire is to keep that to a minimum. The restoration first penalty model also mirrors the corrective nature of teen court. The panel's rulings will focus on equitable remedies and community restoration, such as granting a practical 90-day extension for compliance, or ordering the redrafting of ambiguous rules, or requiring board member educational training rather than punitive financial judgments. Preservation of appellate rights to maintain formal constitutional due process requirements. Final administrative rulings issued by the private judge magistrate can be directly appealed to the District Court of Appeal under the frameworks established in Florida's voluntary trial resolution statutes, Florida Statute 44.104. And then you have actionable mandates for the August 3rd panel. This is what we're asking of you today. Number 1, for our legislators, Representative Mr. Buchanan and Mr. Porras. Did I say that right? Porras. What we're asking of you is to introduce or sponsor an explicit statutory carve-out or local pilot program funding bill during the next legislative session, which I know is getting ready to start. There's already stuff going on, authorizing Sarasota County to formally operate an administrative HOA diversion court program and legally block attorney fee shifting during peer reviews. We would ask the chief judge, the magistrate in this case, to have authority to establish the special magistrate division by local administrative order. This order will route pending neighborhood covenant and property restrictions disputes directly to authorized retired judges for expedited review before they can clog up the civil court dockets. And to the state attorney and the county sheriff, we ask for law enforcement action. Create joint HOA fraud and cyber stacking, that's a new one, cyber stalking task force. When board committee members or vendors cross the line from a civil dispute into criminal trespassing, targeted voyeurism, such as putting their camera in your bedroom or toward my bedroom, or falsifying corporate billing invoices, it must be aggressively prosecuted as a criminal offense that it is, rather than simply put off as, oh, that's just a little neighbor dispute. I don't know about you, but those kinds of activities that this gentleman was talking about are very concerning for us as homeowners. And then to the president of KONA, and I'm sorry that Mrs. Ramirez is ill, we'd like to ask that you authorize KONA, the Council on Neighborhood Associations, to serve as a formal community partner to help vet, staff, and provide ongoing civic oversight to the peer juror and community advocate positions on the active panel. Sarasota County has an historic opportunity to pioneer a fair, efficient alternative to predatory HOA litigation model. By replacing a rigged mediation network with an independent judicial civic panel, we can restore balance to our neighborhoods, protect the financial well-being of our single-family homeowners, and set a new standard for property standards across Florida. Is that allowed?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, 720, 303, something, already provides that before mediation, the board has to get a group of 3 people from the membership that's not involved or something like that, and it presents to them the offenses that the other member has been accused of before they even go to the mediation and all that process. You know, it's already there.
No.
Actually, no, I would disagree with you there, and that's a fair question. Did everybody hear the question? It was about 720-303, and I'm not a lawyer. Let me say that point blank, I am not a lawyer. So I'm spouting that from what you said, but it requires a panel, but it's from the HOA itself. And in my view, that is incestual. That's not okay. You have to, there's no nice way for me to put it. You have to have truly objective folks who have no skin in the game in order to have it be properly adjudicated.
Here's the scenario, and this is a real scenario. They know the rules. They know the laws, and they're sitting there. But you just get a lawsuit. You've been summoned, and now you have to show up in court.
Yes.
And there's a mandatory mediation. They schedule out the mediation. They cancel it right before.
Yes.
Now you're whatever.
And what happens when they cancel, that's the point. The point of this is to pause the legal fees that allows for a more objective review, and it may or may not work. This has worked very successfully with teen court.
Like something of order of, if you are summoned and you have not gone through this process, it now becomes a criminal offense where knock by police officer and the president of the board is arrested.
So be arrested if you don't follow the law.
So it's not, it just gets, yeah, you're right, but it doesn't matter. Because
Well, it's a place that we'll have to agree to disagree. That's
I
okay.
mean, what I'm saying is, there's gotta be a way to enforce these things
We
without
got it.
laws.
That's what this is for. We have a question here also? Yes, ma'am.
In regards to the panel, that's for the HOA board to do that. What about if it's a homeowner that's going after the board and wants to go to mediation? Does the homeowner have to go through that panel then as
Yes.
well? Okay.
Yes, you need to file. If it's dealing with restrictions that are covenant related, covenant restrictions, then the answer would be yes. You would want to go there first. And it's one of those situations, a lot of times if you go into court, we have the lawyers in the room, so please, if I'm wrong, okay, you have every right to whack me on the head because I'm not a lawyer. But generally speaking, what I've seen is a judge or a court process will ask you, have you exhausted all of your other administrative remedies before you came to the court? So this is an administrative remedy being offered as a diversion to having these huge court cases that can cost a lot of money. And I've watched what Elizabeth's been through. I've read the documents, it's extremely concerning. And we need something that helps protect us. Do you want?
Thank you.
I will answer your question.
She knows that quite often. What I'm going to ask you is raise your hands if you, excuse me. Raise your hands if you have something to add so our panel here can take notes. Can you raise your hands? Okay, could you stand up and go behind and we're going to ask also our national president that is in line to also have something to say because he sees this all over the nation. Go ahead.
Opening remarks there. Opening remarks.
Yes.
So my name is Jose Jimenez. I'm also a resident of HOA. Thank you very much, both representatives, for being here. I'm also on the Charter Review Board, and I represent District 5. From personal experience, I think the HOA proposal you're making is great. However, it's missing two major points even today, even with your proposal. Funding. If we don't put provisions in that new proposal so that the homeowners are funded in some manner, the HOA boards will continue to beat us every single time. And two, add a provision to the HOA proposal that there be some kind of criminal penalties for not responding. If they're being egregious to seniors, there should be some a third degree felony or something like that. That this is the way to balance and equalize basically the playing field. That's the part that's missing. But people don't understand is we've been through the process already. We have our own beef. They weaponized that mediation process. They did not show up in good faith. They had the money. We had to come up with our own money. Now my only choice is to file a lawsuit against them. And they even went back. There's ways of delaying before you even can submit a demand by the court to get them to show up. So we need to put a funding mechanism in there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take
They
notes.
have our money, they're using our money, so we have no worry about it, it's just the floor is not paid with our money. We need something to be done.
Before I give comments, can we hear opening remarks?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I appreciate you taking the lead.
I very much appreciate that. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the opportunity. And I want to thank everyone here for taking the opportunity to get engaged and provide your feedback here today to us, the lawmakers, as there are many examples in which we've brought over the time that I've been in office, at least, ideas from our district to Tallahassee and pass them. I'm in a fortunate situation in which I've actually chaired the Commerce Committee over the last 2 years. As it relates to HOA, also condo, most of the legislation that's been filed as it relates to make changes to this section of statute has flowed through our silo. We're also very blessed today to have Representative Porras here today, who serves as vice chair on our Commerce Committee, but he's also the resident expert in the Florida House as it relates to homeowners associations. And so I want to thank you all for being here. I do want to also mention the first time now, I've, like many of you, have had the opportunity over the years to have lived in 3 HOAs over my time as an adult. And not all of them work the same. They're all a little bit different, and there's always an issue or two that comes up. But I really dipped my toe in the water. We had extensive reforms in 2024, of which Representative Porras was very involved with, of which he's going to share a little bit about that. But I first dipped my toe in the water in 2023 when I had 3 gentlemen come to my office, of whom are local constituents. Some of them are here today: Tom Desane, John Coughlin, and Chip Adams, come into my office and mentioned that in their community there was selective enforcement as it related to flags that were being flown. And thank you for your service, sir, in bringing that issue forward. As it relates to first responder flags, our blue line flags, the red line flags were There was enforcement around one type of flag, but not another. And so that's when we filed legislation to address that, but also to address those items that you have in your property. If you live within an HOA, if no one in the HOA can see it from the road, it shouldn't be something that they can enforce on. It shouldn't be something where they have a say in what's in your backyard if no one can see it. And so I thought it was a good piece of common sense legislation brought forward by folks in this community, of which we were able to get across the finish line. And that's what it's all about in terms of, you know, spending time with the folks in the community and getting their feedback. That today is what it's all about. The commitment, I believe, and I'm not going to speak for Representative Porras, will make for you today is there will be a bill, so long as I'm elected to Senate, there's going to be a bill filed in the Senate, there's going to be a bill filed in the House around further comprehensive HOA reform this upcoming session. That's what tonight's about. It's not about politics or anything else. It's about getting community feedback as it relates to legislation that we're going to be bringing forward this upcoming session as it relates to homeowners associations. This last, just before you jump in, I'm going to let him talk about the significant reforms that were brought forward, and then about this bill this session. But this session, we brought forward also an historic bill which passed through the House, and I'm going to let Representative Porras go into the details. But from my standpoint, something that I think we must address as it relates to homeowners association, and it's something that hasn't been brought up yet tonight, but it was within this package, and it's very important. If we're talking about reform in any way, we must address Kaufman language. And now, for those of you that don't know or understand Kaufman language, it's more or less an opportunity for HOAs to get out of following state law. And it's a tricky issue because constitutionally, we cannot pass legislation, and we shouldn't pass legislation that infringes on constitutional rights. Technically, when you move into an HOA, you are getting into a private sector contract. So we had to find a creative solution to address this issue. Because while we've passed all these reforms, there's a lot of HOAs that are saying we do not have to follow these reforms. And at the state level, we have the ability, as it relates to preemption for local governments, counties, cities, special districts, but at the moment, not HOAs. And so for now the solution brought forward in this bill would have required a vote. Would have required a vote within the HOA that they include Kaufman language into their bylaws. And for me, that's something that's very important that we address. Otherwise, many of the other concepts, ideas brought forward tonight that are good ideas may not be enforced. So that's something that's very important. And then we brought up a unique concept around addressing the conflict within HOAs. And I'm going to let Representative Porras kind of go backwards in time and talk about the original piece of legislation and then what was done this year out of the House, of which, unfortunately, and Elizabeth mentioned this, did fail in the Senate. Representative Porras.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Let's try that again. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Oh, there we go. It is such an honor. Thank you for your applause. It is such an honor for me to be here with you guys again. I believe I was here about a year ago, thanks to Elizabeth and Representative Buchanan, here in Sarasota, addressing you all on my #1 issue in the Florida legislature in my time that I've served, and that's HOA reform. For those of you who don't know who I am or why a representative from Miami is here, I represent House District 119. My name is Juan Porras. I'm the youngest member of the Florida House, as you can tell. I'm also the first Gen Z member of the House. But I am the resident expert on HOAs because of the district that I represent. In my district, I represent the largest HOA in the state of Florida. It is called the Hammocks. It is about 20,000 residents in one little HOA that has a master association with dozens of mini associations inside of it. And when I decided to run for office, before I became elected, I was a legislative assistant, similar to Thomas, and who works with Buchanan. And the number one issue that I experienced in my community was people arguing that said that their HOA fees were going up. They didn't know where the money was going to. They didn't know who to call. And it led to an investigation through my state attorney's office, which I helped at that time through our office. And when I knocked on about 30,000 doors in my race when I first decided to run, that was the number one issue that people addressed: the lack of accountability, the lack of transparency in their homeowner association. And lo and behold, the week that I had the honor of being elected to the legislature, my state attorney arrested the entire board of the Hammocks for RICO charges. That's led to, I think, the largest organized crime bust of our state's history, which actually just finalized a couple months ago, and that was back in 2022 that investigation started. The investigation finalized, and the association funneling and really stealing about $14 million from my district, from residents in my district, countless homeowners that have had thousands of dollars in fines, liens, even elderly residents, similarly to this gentleman, who have even lost their homes, that to this day are homeless or living with family because of the fact that they've foreclosed on their homes with these predatory liens, these predatory fines. And that led to my passion for serving in the legislature and for creating this homeowner association reforms. So let's take a step back to when I was first elected back in 2022. Obviously, I had the honor of serving alongside Representative Buchanan, who's been tremendous help even back then. And I realized that when I got to the legislature and I started reading Chapter 720, that it is essentially the Wild West. Before I got into office, there was really no regulation or no real criminal penalties, no real language on anything that barred HOAs from doing anything criminality. Our first year in 2022, it was a very ambitious package that I was honored to be able to have passed. One of the provisions in that bill, funny enough, that made it illegal to have kickbacks, which you would think that should already be illegal for an HOA board member to profit among their own position as an HOA board member. It also created criminal penalties for election fraud, for ballot tampering, for a slew of criminal acts among an HOA, which I would argue 99% of Floridians would think that is already a crime. But that just started, I think, the first step in just a wave of issues that I saw, not just in Miami, not just in my district, but across the state of Florida. I have the honor now of hearing from constituents and residents all the way from the Panhandle to the Florida Keys that have had issues and brought me their concerns with their HOA. And other than that piece of legislation, I filed successfully an HOA condo reform bill each and every year that I have been sitting as a member of the legislature. A lot of it thanks to our commerce chair. I have to say, James Buchanan, who has been so supportive since day one. And I was a co-sponsor of that original flag bill that he filed with, so that was a great learning experience from the beginning. But let's talk about, I think, some of the main issues before I talk about this year's legislation. Some of the main issues I see in HOAs today, and some of the main issues that we brought forward in the legislature this session. What I've witnessed from hundreds and thousands of complaints of residents, similarly to each of you, is the toothless nature of the DBPR, of the state agency, and the lack of the state to really get involved in a lot of the issues that revolve around homeowners associations. Now, condos have a whole slew of similar problems, And the state does have precedent, obviously, to get involved in some of the issues, although I don't think they do a good job for condos either. But for HOAs, they do absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And if anyone's ever emailed DBPR and had an issue with an HOA, they know you'll get an email right back saying that they have nothing to do with you or with your issue, and that is absolutely unacceptable. I think HOAs, I think about 60% of residents in Florida live in a homeowners association. You know, it is not just for us as a state to continue acting like this is not a problem. When we see criminal activity, like in my district, that was essentially empowered by the lack of state regulation, by the lack of state enforcement, it sets the precedent for people across the state to commit more crimes and to, or like Representative Buchanan said, just not listen to what the law is. So there's a lack of enforcement at the state level, and I must say, you know, we are working on reforms for this next year, which is why we're here today listening to a lot of your ideas. You know, we did have a lot of issues this year with the piece of legislation in the Senate, and I must say, you know, it's going to be a completely different tone once we have Representative Buchanan in the Senate, God willing, and we do have a new governor after November. So, yeah, that was it. So I'll talk a little briefly about the piece of legislation that I filed this year, and then I want to get to questions and really solutions and issues that you guys have seen and heard. I know we have some people waiting to speak also. So House Bill 983 is a piece of legislation that I filed this year. House Bill 983 is relating to, shockingly, homeowners association. And that, I think, was one of our most ambitious packages to date. It was, when it was first filed, it was almost a 100-page piece of legislation that did three main things. Number one, for the first time, it established a procedure for homeowners to essentially dissolve their homeowner association entirely. Thank you. So I mean, not all of them all at once, but it allowed for if a supermajority of residents wanted to vote on the elimination of their HOA, that they would have a legal pathway to do so. Second of all, and it's interesting because Elizabeth had discussed it before we started speaking, but House Bill 983 would have created a statewide homeowner association court program. So for not just in Sarasota County, but for the whole state. And we did have funding actually allocated for that bill under my piece of legislation. I was able to secure $2 million in our state's budget to run a statewide court program with real judges, not magistrates, with real judges, new judgeships that would have been created for essentially for all sorts of civil, HOA, and condo related issues, which the bill also would have eliminated completely pre-suit mediation, which, like we've heard today, has been completely weaponized against homeowners. And as you guys have seen, attorneys and HOAs alike have used mediation as a tool to elongate the legal process, knowing that homeowners will not be able to pay for the attorneys in the long run. And that section actually was, other than the dissolution, got a lot of controversy, but the mediation was fought very hard, as you can imagine. It was fought very hard by the trial attorney lobby, by all sorts of special interest groups, as you can imagine, attorneys that make their money through mediation. But that did not stop us, that did not stop me. That bill, obviously passed the House in flying colors. I think it passed without a no vote in most committees. I think at the full vote of the House, it only received about two no votes out of 120 of us. But the dissolution, the court program, and the Kaufman language piece that Representative Buchanan mentioned is the three, I think, most pivotal parts of that piece of legislation that I think a lot of that will need to come back. I don't know if the dissolution piece will come back, but that's something we may have to work the kinks through. But I do know that the core program was something that received overwhelming support, and you know, as I read your pilot program, it pretty much reads like how my core program read, just
We just want to enforce.
a little bit more fleshed out, of course. And it also allowed for some of that funding to go to state attorneys and sheriffs on their own HOA investigative units.
Yes.
Miami-Dade, because of the work that I've done in the legislature, we've been able to bring back some state funding for our sheriff and for our state attorney to essentially create an HOA fraud task force. Because of that funding, I'm very honored to say that we've cracked down on fraud when it comes to property managers. Specifically, in the past year alone, there have been about 24 property managers and HOA board members that have gone to prison for HOA fraud. The program works. Obviously, the funding mechanisms work. We just need to provide that model to the state and make sure that obviously that attention is given to the areas that need it most. Obviously, like yours here in the 11th Circuit, and areas like in Broward County and also in the Tampa Bay area that have a lot of issues. But here's where we are for next session. Obviously, I mentioned we now have a strong Senate sponsor in James Buchanan, God willing, once he joins in the Senate. But yes, absolutely. But I also want to talk about the broader issue, which is DBPR, the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Because statutorily, we should be resolving this through the state agency. I mean, the state law requires, obviously, that we get involved in some of these issues that when it comes to condos. And I think it's our responsibility to extend that to HOAs and to actually reform the entire agency and do it differently. You know, whether that means a complete restructure of how that funding mechanism works or a complete restructure of what DBPR does and doesn't do, I'm willing to start having that conversation and cut what needs to be cut. And I know I don't want to speak for Rep. Buchanan, but I know he's committed to that as well. So I'm hoping to work with our next governor. I won't say who I think it is, but I think a lot of us here probably know who it's going to be. But you know, and he's also committed to making sure that agency is reformed as well. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay in the legislature for as long as I think that these HOAs need to be reformed and real transparency and real accountability is given, not just in Miami-Dade, but statewide. And we're here to make sure that happens. So thank you guys so much for having us. I'm going to be here as long as you need me to be. I'm happy to answer questions, concerns, and hear your stories so that when we're up in Tallahassee, we're able to relate that. But before I end, I will say, you know, it means so much, obviously, to hear from all of you at these events and to relay your concerns to your representatives like Rep. Buchanan. But when we are in Tallahassee for legislative session, it means so much to actually hear from homeowners like yourselves when we are up there. And I know it is a huge trek to go all the way to Tallahassee and talk to them and be and you know, testify in a committee about your situation. But I can tell you, I personally, you know, have paid for people in my area to come speak, because you'll be amazed how many of our colleagues have absolutely no idea that these issues are going on in our state. And people will come to Tallahassee and come to our offices and say that, oh, all HOAs are great, all property managers are great, and it could not be more false. I have hundreds and thousands of cases proving otherwise, and you know, there needs to be stronger reform also for just as much as we're holding accountable HOA boards, we need to do a better job of holding property managers accountable as well. Because if they are licensed through our state, their license needs to be held accountable when they allow for something to go wrong or go awry in their association. So you have my commitment that those three things are gonna be worked on in the next legislative session. So thank you.
It's great to see you, gentlemen. Thanks for those words. My name is Justin Hill. I'm a resident of the district.
Mr. Buchanan, thank you very much. We are absolutely lucky to have you. Representative Porras, a lot of these folks don't know, but you're the real deal. You have a business down in Miami, and you do this on your own time, and you do it well. So, and we can't forget the spouses that show up to these things against their will. And I really didn't come here to butter you all up. This is a passion of mine when I lived out of state. You know, people warned me about HOAs in Florida, and I said, no, it can't be that bad. So we finally, after we lived here a few years, we found a great home to build in a resort community. And this is kind of all new to me, resort communities, CDDs, and several HOAs involved. And listen, I signed up for it. Only I can be blamed. But something I think that we're only just now seeing the tip of the iceberg, because a lot of the HOA issues are from older HOAs, right? Very well established. New resort communities had something very interestingly new to me, and that's different levels of membership in your HOA. In my neighborhood, about 1/3 of the neighborhood has a little higher HOA fee, but they get their grass cut, you know, and it just, you get a little bit more, you get your own pool, we have our own pool and stuff. But after we built and we got in, we found out, oh, there's more amenities. There's a restaurant being built inside the neighborhood. And it's a full-fledged restaurant. But I was surprised to find out that only 1/3 of the residents get to use the restaurant. So 2/3 are paying for a restaurant, while 1/3 gets to use it. And I asked, I said, well, who's on the hook? Because restaurants, listen, a lot of restaurants go out of business, even in this county, as much as it's growing. They're probably gonna put us on the hook for about $1 million a year in losses, right? Because only about 2,000 people are gonna be available to use this restaurant. Yet about 8,000 to 12,000 probably live in the neighborhood. So 2/3 of, including me, I'm on the hook for the losses of this restaurant. And when I brought it up at our HOA meeting, we had a similar gasp. It was, but no one's done anything about it, no one's saying anything about it. And you know, it's because we don't have control of our board yet, right? We only have one member. And what a great way to sell homes at a higher price per square foot if you have your own amenities that all the others don't have access to. Listen, if I'm on the hook for the debt for any portion of the HOA, then I want to use the amenities. And forgive me for leaving, I gotta go pick up a kiddo. But you guys, thank you for making yourself available. You guys are true champs. I hope to see you in the Senate.
Let me just make a quick comment. Mr. Hill just left, but in fact, it brings up a very important point. It's something that we have looked at. It's policy that I've worked on. We haven't gotten across the finish line. In fact, it's something that Mr. Clapp here, who's in the audience, has brought to me year after year. And it's something that I would love to see part of this legislation, Representative Force. It's around disclosure as it relates to going into HOAs. You know, making sure that that buyer, you know, has the previous meeting minutes, knows the financial position of the community that they're going into, making sure that they're aware of some of these things. And Mr. Hill just highlighted that. So, Mr. Clapp, that's something I'm going to continue to commit to you to working on.
I'd like to tell you my situation and then get a yes or no answer. I recently, for the first time, just bought a house in a subdivision without having any idea what I was going up against. So I've had Dish Network for 16 years. They moved my dish to the new house in the subdivision before my movers came with the truck. So now they gave me 2 inches of paperwork. And I'm a slow reader, and plus I spent the first week unpacking. The second week, I had to go in for a spinal operation, followed by a second emergency spinal operation. I got a blood clot on my spinal cord. And then I've been in recovery. I've just gotten out of recovery. I still haven't read the whole 2 pages, but I was notified to take my dish out. Now my dish is not on the roof, not on the side of the house. It's 2 feet in the ground behind in my backyard, behind the bedroom window, and they said, take it out. And I looked up right away, and I found that Florida state law says no one can stop anyone from using a satellite. And then I looked up FCC. They said the same thing. So I appealed it to the board and got a letter, an email back, and I don't email, by the way. I had my son do it. I'm not computer literate, except to play poker. Sorry. So I get the denial back a second time, and it's according to Article 16 of the homeowners. Well, I flipped through all the 2 inches of paper quickly, and I told them I have no Article 16. So they sent me Article 16. And it says in there, you can't have a big antenna, you can't have short wave, you can't have this, and all the rules. And then in parentheses, it said, except, not ACC, EX, except according to FCC, I don't remember, 134. So when I looked up 134, it said the dish has to be under 3 meters. And according to everything it said, my dish fits that. So I did another appeal. And I said, by the way, I'm not computer literate, please send me physical US mail. But according to your regulation, in the parentheses, I should be okay. And they said, well, you have to call this young lady who's in charge of 3 blocks of villas. Just not the rest of subdivision, but my 3 blocks. So I called her up and I explained to her about the parentheses, and I fit the regulation, and she said, you cannot have a dish. And I said, but excuse me, according to state and federal law, I meet the criteria. Sir, I said, you can't have a dish. So, also, in that email, well, that was Tom talking on the phone. I get another email that says, you're denied, case closed. So in my mind, that tells me the case is closed, they don't want to hear about it. We're going to send you a letter stating this, and you have 30 days to appeal. 6 weeks, I haven't got the letter yet, so I still have my dish. I don't know what to do. Any advice?
Well, I have 2 questions for you. One would be, is it something that can be readily seen from the road?
Oh, I can't see it from the road at all. It's behind my house, in my backyard, 2 feet from the house with bushes on each side.
And then the second question, do you live within a sub-association within a master association, and were those the bylaws in which you were looking at as it related to? Because sometimes in Florida we have a master association and then layers of other associations.
Well, I believe it's a layered, and because they said this one person was in charge of a 3-block area of villas, just the villas.
Okay. Well, definitely, we got your contact information. I'd love to get with you on it and talk to you a little bit more. But based on that piece of legislation that we passed that I referenced in 2024, if it's not readily visible from the road, then you should be okay to have it in your backyard. So that should cover you right there. Now, if you do not have Kaufman language in the bylaws of your HOA, they have the ability to push back and say, we do not have Kaufman language and we do not have to follow this statutory change.
I would argue, since it is federal.
Would you mind if I sit there?
Please sit.
Please.
Stand that long enough. Yeah, I got it.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's absolutely not acceptable by any means, in my opinion. I think you mentioned federal law, and federal law does overrule an HOA, I think on 90% of all cases. It is a very unpopular answer, but it's right now the only thing that works, and that's hiring a lawyer. And I know most people don't have the money to hire a lawyer, which is why we've worked on getting these pilot programs for people that can't afford these issues. But I mean, unfortunately, the reality of the matter is these HOAs will push back until someone with more power than them pushes back on them. Whether that means a lawsuit. Sometimes we may get involved and they may not care either. Unless it doesn't affect them legally or financially, a lot of the times they don't care to fight. They don't care about what you have to say. So I do think, however, though, if you do show that to an attorney, you show the parentheses with the federal law, and obviously the satellite matches what you're saying it does, they should be able to get that fine thrown out, obviously, if they haven't done so already. And also, there should be, I know you did mention it before, that each fine does need to go in front of their 3-person committee. And I would have someone, either your son or an attorney, essentially pleading the case. If they approve this fine, they're going against federal law. And they can be open to a lawsuit if they do approve of that fine for you. And that's probably more expensive than just waiving that fine. Sometimes just threatening a lawsuit sometimes gets some things done. But sometimes they don't care. So
what we need to do is to put a maximum amount of money for the lawyers. We have a cap.
$500, that's it. No.
My name is Robert Banta. I live in the same
Subdivision.
development as Elizabeth, but certainly Sarasota County. I hear constantly, I've been on the board, I've been on an HOA board for our community.
Great one.
So I understand how it could work both ways. I think what you've heard is a plethora of injustices. It's the inner feeling of the injustice and no one to talk to who has the power. And the HOAs have the power. You talked about, okay, here's a solution, and I'm not debating you on this, but I'm holding this up as an example. You tell someone, okay, the only answer I can think of, because of the lack of other things I might add, other legislation that you're working on. If you tell someone to go get a lawyer, that means the HOA gets a lawyer. Who pays the fine if the HOA is fined? Who pays the lawyer if the HOA? And they don't just get a lawyer because it's not their money they're spending. They get $500, $600 an hour lawyer. And a law firm, and maybe 2 or 3 lawyers. And that is where we are. There is no one, it seems, these are small issues in scope. They're not like some big, huge explosion somewhere that someone caused. This is small stuff. But there is injustice every single place, and there is corruption. There is corruption. And bidding practices, for example.
Oh my God, yes.
And communication. Our community, I will tell you how they do it. Once a year, they have the election. The ballot counters are the management association.
Yes, that's it. Who cheats?
Who's totally a chucky, of course. They're out of it. They're neutral. Yeah. So when I recognize of injustices, I say, who can I appeal to? It's not a big deal. I don't want to go through lawyers. And yet the HOAs become big bullies. Because they see how Elizabeth is treated. So what do? Shut up and pay. When they come after you, you say, I don't want any trouble. I know one fellow in our neighborhood, small example. One fellow in our neighborhood, he followed the community extension service dictate that around rainwater or stormwater retention ponds, we must have a buffer zone. This means taller grass right at the water's edge. He says, he asked him, can I have wildflowers? They even propose from the county extension that you make these things pretty. So you can plant flowers. He hires a contractor. They go through it, they make an area, they bring dirt in, costing $2,000. Wildflowers come up, the neighbors complain because they don't want to have to do it for their yards. They call the HOA president comes out and she says, you, Mr. XYZ, must remove all of those flowers and put it back like it was. And furthermore, we're going to bring the contractor in to do it for you and charge you $2,600. And he left it at that because he said, I'm too old, I don't have the willpower to go through this. I just want to sleep at night. They're bullies. And this is the kind of thing that we need to have, as you propose. I love all of your proposals. I've got 2 or 3 more I would add to it, but contracts. We need to have, there is in 720, there are pieces and parts of how contractors should be at, but they should require multiple bidding. They should require the community to review the contract specifications before the contracts are let out to be bid on. They should be able to come and say, we see what the evaluation of the contractors is and how they chose this contractor or that.
I'm fairly certain I actually put that into law already. Just putting it out there. I think I'm almost certain that every HOA by law currently has to provide 3 options for bidding.
What do you do when they don't do it? They tell you to shut up and go home.
That's the bigger problem.
Get a lawyer. Now we're back to they'll get bigger guns than yours. That cycle has to be stopped. That's my whole.
We touched on one of the biggest issues, and I am not, just so you know, I'm not in favor of finding associations, because at the end of the day, you guys pay for yourselves. So at the end of the day, we need to figure out a way where the HOA board members or the property managers are the ones making these decisions, and they're the ones at fault. They need to pay personally.
Thank you.
Or have their license. That's something that I've already worked on, and that's part of reforming DBPR is how we go after these property managers and some of these boards without having the general public pay for some of that. It's a process, but I'm working on it. Hi
guys. My name is June Ward. Thank you so much, Representative Buchanan, Representative Porras. Thank you.
Thanks for pronouncing it right.
Porras.
There you go.
Porras. The people in the back. All right. So I'm representing a company called fairhoa.com. And this is Michael, he's one of the owners, as well as Alex. And I'm just the girl who hosts the podcast. But anyway, we created Fair HOA out of personal pain, moving from the north and knowing nothing about HOAs. It's always a free service for residents. It's an AI system that pulls data from across the web and processes public records to give every community a simple 0 to 100 harmony score. and there's more information. But what I'm curious about is, didn't we pass an HOA reform? And what's missing from that? I'm coming from a place where I kind of don't know much. I'm the stupid girl in the room. And, you know, a lot of our public, they don't know either. So can you explain what's going on? I thought we already covered this, and why hasn't it been covered?
Yeah.
It's, well, from my standpoint, and then we'll let the experts speak here. From my standpoint, it's two words, and I mentioned it earlier, Kaufman language. You know, if they don't have to follow the statutory precedent put forward, that is part of the problem, a major part of the problem.
So, just so you understand what that means, I want to say about 10 or so years ago, more or less, there was a court case, and I'm not sure why the judge decided this, but the HOA fought in court that if their bylaws said a certain provision and state law then changed that or made it illegal, that they essentially would be grandfathered in and that they would not have to change their bylaws. And that is called Kaufman language now, because the person who sued on behalf of the HOA was a gentleman by the name of Kaufman. So essentially, whenever we don't, unless your HOA bylaws has a part of it that says as amenable by state law or by Florida law, they don't have to listen to what we say. They don't have to listen to Florida law, even if we pass it. So I have put in HOA reforms for the past 4 years. A lot of them have been very extensive, but there are some HOAs that exist that don't have that provision in law that says that their bylaws are amenable by state law. So essentially, they're like, okay, that's great, you passed this law, we're not going to follow it because the bylaws supersede you, which I think is completely unconstitutional, in my opinion. I think Florida state law is supposed to be above, I would argue, you guys elect us. You don't elect, for the most part, a quasi-elected HOA. So I think our law should supersede their laws or their contracts, but we run into this issue called contract law. And that is a very delicate issue, because if we start breaking private contracts, and all of you obviously signed up to live in an HOA, and that is a private contract, we are told that we would open Pandora's box for the state getting involved in all sorts of private contracts.
You need to be.
And I think we should, though. I think we should, in my opinion. So I'm going to keep pushing for it. I know Representative Buchanan agrees with me that we need to get that Kaufman language issue fixed. And we did try this year in that legislation that I filed. We essentially said that every HOA that has to take a vote to put that language onto their bylaws. That is to the extent I think that state law could force them to do that. It's not a perfect solution either, because they could just vote to not put it in. But if they don't do the vote, or if they vote to not put it in, maybe I can write a law another year saying that that's illegal. But,
Yeah, because not like a normal home buyer doesn't know what Kaufman language is.
Right.
I just go
completely
to our
understood that.
courthouse.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Thank you for that question.
And I just wanted to follow up. My name is Michael Brovkine. I was born in Soviet Union, and I'm pretty allergic to communism, which HOA looks like. We came from north. I came from New York. My partner came from New Jersey, and we didn't know about 90% of what's happening to us right now living in HOA communities. That's why we decided to create a free platform for residents where they can actually see what's going on, and the platform is to create transparency. And my partner is a high-tech guru, working in sold a few high-tech companies, and we created a platform where all of you can actually go and vote and register and talk about your communities, and your stories will become live. And that's what we are doing with June, and we need your help actually for this. We need something that where people can come and spill out all the stories, not only in this small hole. Unfortunately, they are not viral. We're gonna make them viral. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you brought up an interesting issue on the coffin law. And unless it was passed by the state Florida Supreme Court, and unless it's grounded in legal principles for land, it should be easy, and it's not easy, for the legislature to pass laws to eradicate, overrule that case, and then make HOA subservient to all laws that are passed by the state. So just because it's difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't try passing law to do that.
Oh, no, I can promise you we're going to. I will say though, that coffin piece, I'm very certain will have to at some point be brought to the Florida Supreme Court. Because, you know, there's, right. And that, I think we may have to pass a law to get it there. So we may, maybe it's something we have to hit.
Eileen Chalanoff, former president of an HOA, but we were a nice HOA. I listened to people when they came and had issues and said, just let us know what's going on. So that's all we asked. A couple of things I wanted to ask you, if you could put in with your legislation. Have the management companies be able to talk to prospective buyers before they even go into contract. And maybe go to the realtors and have them supply or get that information that's needed. They should. So was I for 30 years. I was on the executive board in PA. And we did that. We made associations supply that information to the realtors. And the realtors should supply that to the buyers.
Should.
And the management should be allowed to speak to buyers when they call with questions. The management that we had said, I can't talk to buyers, they're not a homeowner. They should be allowed to answer questions.
Thank you so much for that feedback, and that's actually exactly what we were talking about, is disclosure when you go into an HOA.
Management and realtors.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for both being here and breaking here, pick the brain with these ideas. So I'm here trying to help my sister-in-law with the fact pattern that I want to make sure is covered by your litigation or your legislation, right? So the problem that we're having is that it's more or less a business enterprise between the president of the HOA and his board and the lawyer. So the whole plan is to find people that are not his friends and essentially discriminate against them and make them leave. So they'll find a camera, they'll find something to do a mediation request, right, out of the blue, no notice. And then if you show up or participate, they just cancel it. Wait a little bit more, and then file another one and wait for something to slip up, and then lawsuits. So once the lawsuit is filed, now a lien can be put on your property. And apparently you can put a lien on a property and a judge will enforce it or allow it, even if there is no actual judgment for an award, right? This was yesterday, okay? Yesterday, the judge said no problem. So now we're at a situation where we're trying to settle the case and we'd love to end it and get the hell out. The lawyer fees were $17,000 before they did something, but now when they moved for summary judgment and they submitted their fee, it was only $14,000. So they're lying again, right? Now, there's a lien, we'd love to get out, they won't unless we pay them. We can't sell it. We have no choice, right? We can't, this all started with the basic quest of, can we lease the property? And you know what the response was? Nothing. So we can't do it without their written permission. But if they do nothing, then what's the remedy? 13 requests later, they still have done nothing. And now we're in a hole. We're stuck with the property, they won't let us lease it, we're in the middle of a lawsuit, attorney's fees are racking up, and there's no remedy. And we get random phone calls from someone saying, hey, we'd like to buy your property for about $50,000 to $75,000 below market. And we say, but there's a lien. You know what they say? Don't worry about the lien, we'll take care of it. This is the president, who he's president of at least 3 associations. He owns multiple properties. There's a person on the board who's the enforcer, right?
Yep.
There is zero, you ask for documents, we strongly believe that he's committing fraud by having improvements and whatever, a check for cash of $100,000, which just happens. You ask for the documents, there's no recourse, there's no remedy of any kind.
And
So,
PBR?
PBR, they're not licensed. One of them's already a felon, apparently not to be allowed to be a felon on the board. What are you gonna do about it?
We have the same reason.
Yeah, we saw it, thank you. But I can't do anything about it. We said the board, hey, maybe that's your job, in charge of licensing. And you know what they said. So, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, but at the end of the day, it's all a joke.
Right now, there are 2 suits that have gone
sorry.
to HUD.
So
And they have,
I'm sorry. So yes, the board has a problem with black women, right? I don't want to throw out allegations of discrimination lightly, but the Attorney General for the state of Florida agrees. So there's 2 pending lawsuits against the Expert Association and the president and the board, pending all these problems. And what can you do about it? Doesn't matter. It's not his money. The lawyer is going to be paid out of something. He's not going to, you know, we tried to get the insurance companies to not cover because of his quote-unquote bad acts, which were alleged in the pleading, but you can't do anything about it. So we're stuck. And even if we do win, we can't sell the property, we can't get out. And when it happens, what do you think that assessment's going to be? 2 major litigations. I calculated roughly, what would I come to, about $15,000 per resident in attorney's fees, not including the amount in judgments against the other parties if they win. That would double. And they're all friends, they're afraid, the enforcer's going to kick them out, send them out of the country. It's a real problem.
That's happening a lot.
Especially targeting senior residents.
Yeah.
Try to
Yeah.
find them out of their homes and sell it and leave them essentially homeless.
And the only reason that it is not completely derailed, we have a lawyer that we're hiring, is because I am a lawyer, right? I don't practice this law, I practice in Massachusetts, I also have a very full-time job. I cannot do this. I can write letters and help. I have certainly paved the way, but man alive, it's a horrible win for a lawyer who wants to take it, but who can pay the money?
Thank you for coming this way and sharing that story.
And you came from where?
I live in Boston, but I grew up in Sarasota. I spent all my youth here. I
But you
just
came
happened to-
from another county?
My brother lives here.
I have a house in Hillsborough County.
Hillsborough.
we bought a home, this was a
For my
home
daughter.
for our daughter to go.
To go to college.
To go to college. And then we went, now she's gone, we want to get rid of it.
And we start.
They
You
think
can
that's
sell,
amongst
you can rent, and all you can do is pay lawyers. And my lawyer costs me about $5,000 per month nicely, because he's not really fully in the financial, you know.
Since the daughter's not on the title.
And I work for the county,
Careful.
and I make only $3,000 per month.
Must be rich.
So my credit card, I can tell you what it is right now, is, no.
Sorry to hijack it one last
I'm glad you
thing.
said
You
that.
put a request in to ask for the documents and proof of this. They don't do anything. Your law says you're supposed to put all these documents on the website. They don't. Right? There's a code of, they say that they sued alleging that we were supposed to submit an application to rent. No application exists. The board doesn't have one. They won't respond. It doesn't exist.
Out
It
of
doesn't exist.
curiosity, because some of these do have criminal penalties. When you bring these concerns to your state attorney, what happens there?
Ironically, so the attorney general who has both those cases, I have emailed.
No, your local state attorney.
Oh.
Oh, God, I can tell you stories about that.
I wrote a few of them. We met,
Sorry.
Because I've brought a lot of these similar
Oh, right.
situations.
We wrote to the DeSantis. we wrote, I even wrote to you too. We wrote,
I get a lot of
whoever can hear.
so, yeah.
Lady, please
Make
stand
sure
up.
you, yeah.
Raise your hand. Let's get your contact information. My aide, Matt McLeany's right there. We would like to get your contact.
Yeah, so I can't speak for Sarasota, obviously, I represent Miami. But in Miami-Dade, when I get similar issues of HOAs blatantly disregarding my criminal penalties, I take that case in a nice little folder and I give it to my state attorney. And I make sure that I follow up with her until an actual investigation is started. Now, I don't know what, the state attorney in Sarasota County, will or will not do when it comes to HOAs, but I can tell you she speaks to my state attorney that there is precedent for criminal charges or even investigation to be done when it comes to my laws that have criminal penalties on them.
And you know what, for sure, there is also human trafficking into that area.
Even more of a
That's
reason.
another story. That's another story.
It's crazy. Whole other thing going on there.
No, seriously, that's why they want everybody else out.
Yeah.
So they can continue their business.
Thank you, Representative Buchanan, and Representative Juan. I'm going to try your last name. Sorry, my voice is shot. Sorry for my dress. I came from work. I have a day job as well. So I am an HOA treasurer. This is house number 16 for me. We've lived in Florida now for 3.5 years. Our board had a vacancy, and I want to speak a little bit on behalf of HOAs that do work.
Yes.
You mentioned 70% don't work.
I'd argue more.
I question your statistic, but nonetheless, hopefully we are one that does work. We listen to the homeowners. We diligently, in our spare time, in my night job, look at the books. All the information is published on a website. The owners, all they need to do is go to that website and they can pull off as much information as they want, including bills and everything, everything is there for them to see. My only question is, and this lady over here, and I appreciate you bringing that up, is one of the things that should be passed is have the realtors make sure, because I cannot tell you, like I said, house number 16 HOAs. I was actually on the board of 3 different associations. One of them, the gentleman that left about the restaurant, obviously that was an HOA that was governed by the builder. Because it wasn't completely developed, it was governed by the builder. But they didn't have anything to do with the HOA, the normal folks that everything's built out, okay, we're gonna have an HOA, we're gonna decide, kind of help, develop the community. Kind of a different story. So the only thing I caution is be careful how broad a brush you stroke, okay? And I get what you're saying, but who's gonna remove the pregnant dead deer from a front yard at 4 o'clock on a Sunday morning if you don't have an HOA or somebody that cares? Who's gonna make sure they tape off the gate or get all the contractor to come in and put the security gate back on its hinges because somebody has decided to take a truck through the back gate when they're not supposed to? Very clearly listed, no trucks, only residents. Who's gonna do all those things?
Can I ask?
Sure.
Do you pay local taxes?
I do.
Do you pay city and county taxes?
I do.
Is there a Sarasota County Code Enforcement Office?
There is.
Those people should be doing all of those things already with your tax pay dollars.
Association.
You call them, they should come.
Well, I mean, to me, again,
Maybe not private road.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because I know what it cost, this is before I got here, because I'm going through the books. I know what it cost to repave the subdivision, and I guarantee it, not a penny of Sarasota taxes went into that. It was all association dues and paid for that. In fact, right now, we're in the process of putting together, our 10-year plan. We're right in the throes of doing that. So I understand. I was in associations where we ended up having the owners end up having to go in and literally pry it out of the builder's hands because there was only one lot left, and we knew that. We went to the city and said, look, this isn't right, here you go. We finally got it out of their hands. So I understand both sides of it. I'm just suggesting there are good HOAs that are out there.
We all
Do
know
things the
that.
way they
We all
need to be done. It's very transparent and do good for the community.
Thank you for being here.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
I was sitting right there listening, and I'm trying to understand. You are from Miami-Dade, Mr. Buchanan, I guess you're here. But people are explaining what is going on in these HOAs. And yet you have things on the books, guidelines that they should follow. But then you say that the HOAs don't have to follow them. Now, somebody must be talking to somebody. I'm quite sure y'all have conferences where you can sit down and meet to the mind, because these people are suffering. They already paid an arm and a leg for the home, then the homeowner insurance that they have to pay, then all these other fees that they have to pay. But yet there's no accountability, because when you say the laws are on the books, but yet they don't have to follow, that's double-minded. Yeah. And these people gonna walk away from here with no resolution at all, because you're saying what you understand to say, or what, however, I won't go deeper into that. But what I will say is that you're sending mixed messages. These people need help. And from what I've heard so far, there's no help. These people that's stealing their money should be held accountable. It should be a way to stop them without spending more money to go to the court when you all are writing the laws.
Great points. By the way, first learned about this talking language conversation. When I first learned about this, it was about around the time we passed our first set of reforms, where we entirely cleaned up Section 720. 2022, was it? That was my exact response, and it's based on court precedent.
So yes, you're absolutely right, but I will tell you that we are here to make sure that that changes. Despite the fact that we've worked years to put these laws into place, there was a judge that said that these HOAs don't have to listen. Now, what we are doing now, within our power, is to pass another law to take this, hopefully, all the way up to the Supreme Court, so that that judgment So, just so the young lady knows, we are working on that solution. And I can tell you, I can promise you that I'm already working on it. I'm here to listen.
Hi, thanks for coming and thanks for listening to us. My name is Sandra Jimenez, and actually I am a real estate broker in Minnesota. Anyway, I hear people say that maybe realtors should explain this. I'm a realtor, and I didn't even understand, even living there. I saw it before I moved. It took me a few years to really figure out what was going on, what the rules really are. So putting it on a realtor, we're not attorneys, we're not gonna wanna give information. The other thing is there's so many different HOAs that they wouldn't even be, they do not wanna get involved. But I noticed when I did give the documents to my clients, one, they had, 10 days before you have to make a decision whether you're gonna go for it or not, and you've got this. And you're trying to figure out, what is this that I have to look for? The financials, the rules and regulations, it is overwhelming. So I think it is a good idea that the management company get involved, that somebody, that if I don't understand something and I'm gonna move in there, that I should be able to call them and ask questions. So that is the first thing. The second thing is, the board is as good as the people that are running it.
Yes.
And you can have a great board, and then all of a sudden, you're there, you're happy, and all of a sudden, the sky is falling. And the problem is they become bullies, and they know they can get away with it. You have to hire an attorney, you're suing yourself because they hire an attorney, and you're paying for your attorney, you're paying for their attorney, and these people walk away and they're not held responsible. There's no accountability. These people need to know that if something happens, that they're going to be held accountable personally if they lose. And that is where we need to take the control back. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for holding this today. I am a resident of an HOA gated community in Manatee County, and we're very happy there. It's a beautiful community. Our HOA board is good. Our management company is good. But we have a reverse situation. We have a group of residents in our neighborhood, one of which is led by a realtor who is like a henchman with her cronies. She has attacked the personalities of certain people on the board, people associated with the ARC. She has caused all sorts of havoc. We've had to retain attorneys. It has increased our fees on what we pay. Our community, it's gone up, several $1,000s a year. And again, she is a licensed realtor in Manatee County, and there's nothing we can do. If you go to the management company to file a complaint on her breaking the rules in the subdivision, she's threatened the cams. So she's gone after them. So they're scared. I had one person that came to my house and said, hey, I just bought a new house. I can't say anything. I've got to keep my job. So my question for you is, what does your legislation do about that?
But that's not too common. That's not too common. That's not common.
I've encountered, people threatening others in HOAs for elections and whatnot. For realtors and whatnot, I mean, that's the first I've heard, but that's an interesting. There's actually right now criminal penalties for harassing an HOA for a board member or a property manager harassing another board member when it comes to an election, when it comes to voting on their board elections. There's not one right now for buying or for realtors.
Okay.
I will say, however, in one of the bills that we got signed into law, we prohibited what's called slap suits. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but essentially, in many cases, an HOA would sue you just for being a nuisance, which is essentially they just don't like you. And there was precedent that they could sue you for X amount of reason because you were a nuisance to the community. And my bill actually prevents those suits from happening now. And I don't know if that counts as that, but I'm happy to look into it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And by the way, we're former Crossings residents.
Oh, okay. I have the Crossings. Yeah.
Another question I have for you. Let's say that you do get to a point, which we're very happy in our community, but you do get to a point where we're going to buy again in Florida, and you do have a dissolution of an HOA. What does that do to the property values?
Well, that bill didn't pass, unfortunately. So there would have been a whole dissolution process before that were to occur. Okay. So under that bill, the community would have had to come to a vote. Over 60% would have had to approve the dissolution of the HOA.
Okay.
It's not an easy process. If that were to pass, then it would have to go to a judge to essentially with a feasibility study to see how those amenities and common elements would be either distributed to the residents or allowed for the local governments to come in and maintain what the HOA used to maintain and what that is going to look like. And that would have to be approved by a judge before any type of dissolution would even occur. And it was done that way on purpose to make sure that there wasn't some type of chaos or black hole after a dissolution would occur. Despite what you heard on the news, it's not just a one-size-fits-all or eraser. I had fleshed it out pretty well. Obviously, it wasn't a perfect structure. We had some concerns about permanent infrastructure that's put in, like fiber optic cables, like what happens with those, and cable and internet providers. The county and the local governments aren't going to do that, obviously. So that's something that I'm willing to take it back to the drawing board. I think that the solution piece turned off a lot of our colleagues, if I may be blunt. A lot of people were not a fan of the legislation just because of the dissolution language, especially in the Senate. So I think next year I'll go about it a little bit differently, a little more tastefully.
We also had a conversation about what that threshold should look like. And that's something where when you move a bill through the process, you're continually working with folks that are colleagues from different parts of the state, getting their input from their community. So that's how the process is supposed to work.
Okay.
I'm happy to look into all that.
Thank you. And one last question, if you don't mind. So we're in a gated community. Our Kaufman language is very limited to a small portion of our financials only.
Right.
So like with parking, we have strict parking regulations.
I passed the parking zone.
Okay. So what happens now if all the Kaufman language applies to everything in our gated community? Does that mean that people can park where they want, they can bring it in? Can you explain that for me?
So I passed a law, I believe it was in 2023, that essentially said that you as a homeowner have the right to park your vehicle, whatever vehicle that may be, in your house, like in your property.
Right.
In your driveway, whether it's your BMW or whether it's your commercial vehicle. I don't think it's the HOA's place to dictate if you have a work vehicle, if you're a plumber, if you work for FP&L, or if you're a law enforcement officer, that you can't have your work vehicle stationed at your house. I think that's unjust. And that law was passed about now 3 years ago. That law was actually, I think that was the one that was why we found out about Kaufman language, because that law, they fought it tooth and nail after it got signed by the governor.
And that piece of legislation, part of it, I believe, emanated from Clearwater or Tampa regarding a law enforcement officer who had their patrol car at their house, and the HOA said they couldn't have that.
So if Kaufman language in your case were to disappear in your community, all it would say is that they have to listen to that state law. So it does not mean that all laws are thrown off the books.
Yeah,
and they
it doesn't
just
mean
park willy-nilly.
Yeah, it
It's
doesn't
just
mean
whatever state law says, they have to follow that.
So if the community is a private gated community and you have rules where you have to use your driveway, your garage or driveway, then you can park on the street. What happens to that person that empties their driveway, leaves it empty, and goes and parks throughout the neighborhood?
No.
Does that affect anything?
No. So again, what state law, what my law said was that you could park your vehicle in your driveway. It does not mean you could park it on the grass of your neighbor's house. It doesn't mean you could leave it on the street.
Okay.
If your HOA has laws against that, sure. I'm saying if it's in your property line, if it's your house, you can park your vehicle there.
Perfect.
That's all the bill did.
Thank you
all
for the
law says,
clarification.
yeah.
I appreciate it, and thank you
Of
for your
course,
time.
yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for coming. Don't live in this district. Just want to
That's okay. We need you.
I own multiple properties. I'm on multiple boards. I am. I'm known as the member advocate. So I'm ostracized on one of those boards because of that. I echo what the real estate lady here said a few minutes ago. You can write all the rules, all the laws you want, but you're writing laws about HOAs. It's the people that have to abide by them that don't. So until you make it very difficult, even if you don't abide by them, it's not going to change. Just a very brief, quick example, 2024, the new education requirements reports.
Yeah, that was me too.
Thank you. They don't do it. So what I said on, they want that education, the certification every year. The other board mentioned, oh, you're supposed to have this, never brought up again. Where's the recourse? If they don't do it, there's nothing. They're supposed to suspend themselves. They're not going to do it. So unless you put in some stricter penalties for the actual board members, I'm afraid it is not gonna change. That's the first thing. The second part is, if you can, I know you keep mentioning, that it failed in the Senate, because of that part of the language. I tend to think it's probably more the lobbyists, lawyers, and the management companies lobbying to keep that legislation from passing for their own self-interest. And again, they represent the HOAs, the homeowners association, the condo association, that's where they get their money from. They don't represent the board members. So I think they would be more apt to defend their own pockets in legislation against the associations than they would the actual members.
Thank you very much for being here. My name is Ed Taylor from Venice. I am a president of the Sarasota Real Estate Investors Association, which is a 175-member strong Sarasota Manatee Charlotte group of landlords, property managers, and realtors. So under that hat, I'm here representing my group, but also I'm also in an association, an HOA, and I'm also a landlord. So my point to you, though, I want to share it with the group.
And you wear multiple hats.
I wear For many of you in the room, no one knows discrimination like a landlord with a tenant in an HOA, which already is predisposed to discriminate against that tenant. Whether they're called because their kids are at the pool or their toys are left out in the yard, but yet next door, an owner has toys in the yard, or the owner next door has kids in the pool. I've crossed sewers with HOAs longer than I care to admit. So my point is, I appreciate it. I champion you have a long road to hoe. I've heard some great information this morning. I did not know about the Carlton rule until today, but now you will have a champion in the Senate. So I applaud you. If you need my association's help or any of my members, we can fill this room with testimony. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Matt.
Hello, representatives. Thank you for your time. I'm a realtor. I'm here to suggest some things on behalf of homeowners across the state that I've spoken with. So don't shoot the messenger. One question I had for you, why don't you propose separate bills? Why does it have to be one big bill that, somebody might not agree with?
What do you mean?
The last bill that you proposed.
983?
Yeah, it was big. And so, people didn't like the dissolved statute, so.
In my experience, Tallahassee is and legislating in Tallahassee is very much a sausage-making process. You begin with one bill and it changes and moves throughout the process. And in my experience, I've been a member now for 4, and I was a legislative aide for another 4. Sometimes and I'm guilty of this also, I will put in more than I think will pass because I know I have to negotiate down. So I make it very large and very substantive because I know at some point we will have to negotiate with colleagues that disagree. And that is in the final product, and obviously there are portions of every bill that I'm not willing to negotiate on. And unfortunately, that's why some of them died, like this one. I was not willing to negotiate that dissolution piece. I thought it was very fleshed out. I thought many homeowners supported it, and they still do. I was not okay with negotiating on Kaufman language. I think Kaufman language is essential to enforcing our state laws. And I didn't want to negotiate on our state court system. I think homeowners deserve to have real accountability and somewhere to talk to when they have a legal issue in their HOA. So yeah, it did seem a little big, but these were issues I think that were super important.
No, I agree. I just wasn't sure why they weren't.
There's one more explanation that you could expand on that as well. As it relates to the State House, you're limited, at least at the moment, to 7 policy bills that you can file.
Yeah, I can only file 7 bills a year.
And so if you make numerous commitments to the folks that live in your district in terms of what you're going to run, you are limited to those 7 bills.
And just building on that, whenever one of us files a piece of legislation, we're amending a piece of statute, right? So whenever we propose a piece of legislation that amends a statute, that opens up the conversation for any of our colleagues to come in and say, hey, I want this change to the statute. And that's just part of the process. So sometimes it gets huge because there are so many people that want changes to that one piece of legislation.
Yeah.
And that's the process.
And by the way, you could start with a simple, and I think this is what he's getting at, a simple, singular topic bill, and it could become this, if it's wide open in the title of the bill, it could become this much larger thing that it didn't originate.
And normally with my bills, they obviously tend to be about homeowners associations. So anything that is relating to homeowner associations could be amended onto my bill. So that's why it's like that. We can't have multiple HOA bills because also the fact of the matter is we only have 60 days to pass bills. So a lot of the times good pieces of legislation don't make it just because we have very limited time. So when there's a specific issue, we try to jam it all in there as much as so to try to get it passed.
But that's a great question.
That is a really good
That was
question.
my ignorance, so thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this, I'm just gonna read the bullet points of what I've heard that HOAs need in the state of Florida. Term limits. All of them. Term limits and consecutive term limits. Some boards are entrenched.
Yes,
Very
7
hard to
years.
recall. You cannot recall in an HOA with an entrenched board. It's very difficult. Homeowners don't want to get involved. Fear and apathy enable toxic boards. There should be an ability to dissolve an HOA. Thankfully, my HOA has a 2/3 membership approval for dissolution. Kaufman language, again, should be included. HOA should be completed, or should be required to complete a reserve study. My HOA was underfunding the reserves for many years. I questioned it at every budget meeting. I got blank stares. A reserve study was completed and it was found that the reserves were 14% funded. We have private roads, I live on the river, we had drainage. So that was very shocking, and reserve studies should be required to be sent to the membership. That reserve study still hasn't been sent to my neighbors.
I'm working on that already with condos.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. There should be a supermajority approval before an HOA initiates a lawsuit against a member.
Yes.
There's 2/3 membership approval in my HOA before my HOA initiates litigation, thankfully, because, yeah, Lord knows. Florida's strict anti-SLAPP law, mentioned in Florida Statute 720, it doesn't prevent harassment or legal threats. Both times I've spoken at local government meetings, I've received legal threats. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've touched on that. It's very difficult to define harassment. I think that's what that's.
Especially from a lawyer.
Especially to lawyers. And I'm not a lawyer, but I play a pretty good one on TV.
There should be an HOA ombudsman's office like a condo, but I know you're working on that, so I'll wait to hear exactly what that.
Part of the issues that relates to that, and then you can continue, that we were running into as it relates to ombudsman process. It's not working all that well as it relates to condos at the moment, which is why we were looking at potentially another option, which was included in this last piece.
Right, the court system. I mean, I'm not confident in our condo ombudsman. I think actually the condo ombudsman's office until recently has been vacant for over 6 months. Like the governor didn't even appoint anyone to the position because of how little work it actually did. So I'm not really confident of giving that same issue. And also we have to fund it. And I think my first year in Tallahassee, I tried to do that. And DBPR gave me a bill of about $40 million that I had to somehow find. And obviously leadership did not give that to me. But as time progressed though, I've obviously hearing stories like yours, I'm less and less confident in DBPR's ability, which is why we've tried to legislate other avenues.
Right.
However, obviously we will have a new governor, like I mentioned, after November. And I'm confident that I will at least be very adamant about reforming that entire agency and how that happens. So if I'm unsuccessful in that, I promise you I'll come back and do a whole new different process like we did this year.
And it's seven,
Or even local,
7:07,
right,
we
yeah.
have to be out of here by 7:30.
Okay.
So we need to move it quickly, because I know we have other people waiting.
There should be increased fines for withholding documents. Right now, it's $50 a day for 10 days. $500 doesn't phase in HOA.
Yes.
It needs to be $5,000 a day for 10 days, and that might get their attention.
My issue is you guys are gonna end up paying that in the long run.
Well, the board members, whoever withholds the documents, there should be.
We'd have to find the person.
Right. And I know nonprofit law, which just passed this session, gives board members more protection,
Yeah.
which is
I don't
unfortunate.
agree, there should be no profit.
Criminal charges for documented harassment or even selective enforcement. Florida has a new statute, it's called a mob intimidation statute. It's a criminal statute, and if you get law enforcement involved and you can prove that they're criminally harassing you under that statute, there you go. There could be criminal penalties for board members that harass them under that statute. It's called a mob intimidation statute. The law enforcement, and that's the thing. I've been to my state attorney. They push me back to the law enforcement agency. Law enforcement says it's a civil issue. So it's a runaround. Like I said, I'm a realtor, and I do agree with disclosing. There already are HOA disclosures that every homeowner, every buyer that goes through a realtor would have to sign in the state of Florida, that they understand the documents. But those documents should say, the DPPR website has language, says, no government agency has statutory authority to investigate HOAs. Homeowner buyers should sign off on that they are aware that no government agency has statutory authority to investigate HOAs.
For now. For now.
For now. Right, thank you. Okay, so maybe that disclosure is not necessary, but, yeah, there should be a checklist, an HOA disclosure checklist that has the governing documents, the budget, the reserve schedule, the latest reserve study, and the past 12 months of meeting minutes. So that way you know if a special assessment was discussed. In my HOA, they did discuss a special assessment because we had 14% funded reserves. They didn't disclose that in the meeting minutes. A special assessment wasn't passed, thankfully, but it was discussed. It should have been reported. Another thing, all amendments to the declaration or to any of the legal documents should be required to be recorded in public record within X amount of days. There are amendments to my HOA that have yet to be recorded in public record. Buyers sometimes, they're resourceful without a realtor sometimes. And they will go to public record to try and pull those documents, to read them themselves. And if they're not there, they could be led astray. And then new development, that's a whole another animal, but local municipalities should not be requiring developers to create HOAs.
I need to cut you down, please.
Yeah,
I'm so
sure.
sorry, because I have a victim here that they took her condo and she really out on the street on 2 weeks. Karen, could you come?
By the way, though, you had some great feedback.
Yes.
Matt, could you please give her our contact information, because we'd love to finish having that conversation.
I'll do you stuff. Come on. I'm not going to leave you. Just give you can do it.
By the way, I mean, I can't speak for Rep. Buchanan, but I'll be outside if anyone still needs to talk or anything like that.
With your permission, I want, she's in a very terrible situation.
Okay.
Not just that she had lost tremendous amount of weight with the stress put by the HOA and the abuse in her condo, but she will be on the street within 2 weeks. They took her condo away. So I need for you two to meet with her, please. Okay, thank you.
We'd love love to spend some time with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gentlemen, my name is Alex Roth. What I'd like to bring up here is we're discussing a lot of legislation, a lot of government oversight to fix those issues. And as me and Michael and maybe some other folks here are from, immigrants from the Soviet Union, we hate communism and socialism because it doesn't work. And we also understand that in the capital environment and in this type of way of living, type of government, we understand the government also has a role to play. So what I'm trying to kind of plant the seed in your mind is to not necessarily create more rules and more oversight, and maybe look at the other side of the equation. And so just from this perspective, just communism, we have to have the rules, but we also have to create the competitive environment of services that are servicing those communities. And I'd like to specifically talk about management companies. We can talk about banks, for example, as a comparison. Right, banks have regulations, but banks are very efficient. Right, we are at the point with banking system, the financial system of this country become very, very efficient. Right, we can do a lot of things with it. So we have to create the environment, the legislative environment that invites the competition amongst management companies, and maybe make management companies a little bit more accountable for following those basic rules. Because none of the people here, I'm sure, wants to read those documents and read those rules. They just want to go home, have a good dinner with the family, just go on with their lives. No one wants to really learn another legislation. With all due respect, I like the things that your guys are doing, but I think our environment should be more competitive. Let the competition work it out. Let the management companies compete amongst themselves and have them accountable in terms of maybe have a regulatory requirement for the management company to provide proper document filing, to provide filing of those rules that we're talking about. But have that more competitive. That will be more efficient, other than creating another rules that everybody have to follow. So that's coming from more communism type of area and side versus capitalism trying to create a competitive environment. That's all we're interested in.
That's very good feedback, and just from my standpoint, a large portion of what we're talking about is almost the opposite. We're talking about making sure that they're following the rules that are already put in place as it relates to Kaufman language. And then Representative Porras and I, when he had this bill that also included disillusionment, so that's going in the opposite direction. But I think that's great feedback.
Yeah, and we've talked about it, obviously. I think part of that is, like you said, reforming how we hold property management companies accountable. There is something that exists called the Community Association Manager Council, I believe, that's supposed to be under the UDR, but it doesn't work, and they don't hold people accountable.
The financial regulations, you have to be certified in order to give somebody a financial advice. So the management companies, I know they have certifications, but this is not enough.
I agree.
Nobody at the board, everybody complaining about the board and claiming that they have become bullies, they become this, they become that. They're not paid positions. Ideally, this is not, somebody should be, should be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. They should hire a management company that is properly handling everything else. They just need to make a decision, but management company should do everything else in the board.
Thank you. Mr. Clapp?
Hey. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We really appreciate it. It's been great conversation tonight. I am a realtor. My name is David Clapp. Representative Buchanan had referred to me earlier. Realtors have come up several times tonight. And I just want to make it clear to everyone that realtors, if you buy a condominium in the state of Florida, you're required to get documents, and you've got 7 days as a right of rescission if you don't like what's in those condo documents. But if you buy in an HOA in the state of Florida, there is no requirement for you to receive those documents, nor do you have a 7-day right of rescission. So you buy a house in an HOA, and you've got 3 cars, and you have a 2-car garage, and you're told by the HOA you can't park the 3rd car in the driveway, you gotta move it outside of the community. Well, if you had read those documents, you would have known that prior to. You buy a house in an HOA, you live up north, you're coming here to retire, and you wanna rent it for 2 years before you retire, but you found out that the HOA has a rule that says you have to live in it for 2 years before you can rent it. And so now you can't live in it for 2 years because you're still up north, and you can't rent it either because you didn't receive the HOA documents and review them. This has been a passion of mine for years. We need to get parity with the condos and the HOAs. Because when HOA rules were put into place, they weren't as onerous as they are today. Today, HOAs are as onerous as the condominiums are. And the rules and the regulations, if you don't follow them, how many stories have we heard tonight of people who've been penalized in really punitive ways because the HOA thought they weren't following the rules? And yet many of them didn't even know what the rules were because they didn't get a chance to see them before they made the purchase. And it's not the realtor's fault that they didn't give them. It's the statute that doesn't require them to be given. And so we need this parity. HOAs need to be the same as condominiums. You need to get the documents before you close in a real estate transaction. You need the right to review them. You need the right of 7-day rescission, which is not currently in place for HOAs. That has to happen in any legislation. I, as a realtor, serve on the state level. I serve on the forms committee. I've tried to get it passed that we do it in our forms, but everyone says, no, we can't lead the legislation. We need to let legislation dictate which should be done. And so we need next session, I'm hopeful that we can get that through in a piece of legislation so that HOAs and condominiums are treated the same way. The right to receive the documents, the budgets, any special assessments, all that information prior to closing on a real estate transaction. We can make that happen, it'll be awesome.
That's something that I'll certainly make the commitment to now, that in the package we bring forward the Senate.
I'll give you a
5-second closing statement, and I think everybody here agrees on how the representatives look so pretty behind their flowers.
I'm changing fast. I'm going to change. This is a request. We have a very corrupt HOA for 7 years. It's been recycled. I believe strongly that they have been hiding a management company that I tried to get documents, and then when they found out that I was up to something, they sold, and 2 of the members from that open and new agency, which has office in the same building as the HOA attorney, which is a multi-million-dollar firm. So when I asked for the documents, they didn't give me all the documents. Then what they did was the president asked them to shred the documents, so I was not able to get them. And then after they shredded the documents, they fired our HOA. Then the HOA got a new management company who also cheated on the elections. these elections. So that's where I need you to look into this because it's a serious issue. What happened is I filed against them with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, and they supposedly did an investigation, but they never went to see the books or anything like that. So when they said that everything was done, and I said, what? I want to see what they answered. They made a website with a password and everything on my name, some email or to get documents, but I was not able to get any of the documents that they filed. So then I said, I don't have them. So I forced them to give me a link, and I copied those documents from the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Meanwhile, this management company, what they did was, they cheated. They run the election, they cheated. Great people that they were running, they're not on the board. They selected someone with a criminal record, okay, as the vice president. And right now, when I asked arbitration, what happened was the company, the attorney, withhold with the HOA the documents that I needed to have from the elections, so it will run the 60 days. But listen to what I found out. The 60 days covers Saturday and Sunday. They don't work Saturday and Sunday. So they stole away a lot of Saturdays and Sundays. But in the top of that, it doesn't count when I put the file in the post office. The stamp. No, they put it about 2 weeks, or they put it 3 weeks, or they put it 1 week on the side, and when they opened the file and they stamp it, that's when they start counting the 60 days. So you need to fix that, because this is, I believe, is a very corrupt way of continuing the abuse that exists in Sarasota, in not just in Sarasota County, in the state of Florida. But right now, we have to do something about it, because arbitration doesn't work, the Department of Business and Professional Regulation doesn't work, they're getting our tax dollars, they're having a job. And by the way, when I talked to the lady from the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, I was coming out of the hospital, my doctor's office, talking to her, but by the time I got start the phone, the car, my phone went off, it takes a time. So do you know what happened? Then she was making fun of me because she thought I had hang up. Yes, I am a Hispanic, I have an accent, I love it, I love who I am, where I'm going, I belong to God, and no one is going to take that away from me. And I will fight to the end. Oh, the arbitration, the woman in the department, the woman's name is Princess.
What?
Yeah, Princess. No, not Jennifer. No, it was Princess. Yeah.
So on that note, I know we're getting towards the end of our time in this room. I know it's getting late for everyone. We want to thank everyone for coming out. We'll hang out even if, I don't know what time the library is closing. We'll give you a few more minutes afterward. Thank you guys for being here. It was an honor to have that opportunity. We look forward to working with you. Thank you.